Imagine a war zone and a panel blaming the defenders. But then one Jewish speaker cuts through the spin with pure sourced facts. From Hamas censorship to fake reports about Israeli shootings, this debate wasn't just intense, it was exposing. And the media didn't want you to hear this.
Try and kick them all out. So none of the goals which they set out to achieve have been achieved and don't look like anything near being achieved. And at the same time, you've got 70% of Gaza has been destroyed. You've got this moving population being moved around, and wherever they move to, they then get bombed again. You've got thousands of them queuing up desperately for food, despite Israelis claiming no one there is hungry. Well, what are they stampeding each other for? To get fragments of food, if that's not the case. And then you've got this Haaretz report, which of course Netanyahu has emphatically denied. And the Haaretz report coming from IDF soldiers they source, saying that a lot of the people dying in these shooting incidents in the food lines are being shot dead by Israelis. So you're pulling people. Yeah. If this is true, and it's an Israeli publication, if this is true, well, you can laugh, Colonel Ken, but why would you laugh?
I do laugh. I laugh because it's fiction.
If it's true, that's the key question.
I laugh because it's fiction.
Field. That was a quote. It's a killing field.
The Haaretz report, as far as I can see, deliberately distorted what they were told. In the Hebrew version, the soldiers apparently said, we were told to shoot in the direction of Hamas, of civilians who were rioting.
No, that's not true. No, I've read that. I've read that. It's simply not true. That's a conspiracy theory. Honestly, it is a conspiracy theory because they talked about the killing fields. They talked about lots of people dying. Okay. 570 people dying.
I read the article and I don't believe it's true. I've been, as I said before, I've been inside Gaza with the IDF before. I've seen the extraordinary measures they take to minimise civilian
even
deaths.
The report you gave, Colonel Kemp, even the report you did had gunfire in the background at the end. Let's take a look.
Many of the people behind me here have told me it's the first time they've ever received free aid. So don't believe the propaganda that's been churned out by Hamas and amplified by too much of the international and national media.
I mean, it was almost like a comedy sketch if it wasn't so serious. There you are saying, don't believe any of the stories of the Israelis shooting at people here, and next thing here is a machine gun going off.
Yeah, you may find machine guns funny, but
I don't.
Those of us who have
I don't find it funny, but it flew in the face of what you literally were saying on camera.
You said it was a comedy sketch. That machine gun.
I said it would be funny if it had been a comedy sketch, but it was actually serious.
I was in that base, in that aid distribution site for around about 2 to 3 hours. In that time, I heard a huge number of explosions, gunfire, etc., because this is in a war zone. And you get machine gun fire, and you get explosions in a war zone. That machine gun fire, if you looked at that video clip carefully, you would see that not one single Gazan flinched when that fire was heard, because it was nowhere near the aid distribution site. It was distant fire, constantly going on. But you can try and turn that into the idea that it's the IDF, as many people have on social media, tried to say this was the IDF shooting civilians. Why would the IDF want to shoot at civilians at a human?
The point he's making is that Piers Morgan is becoming a part of the propaganda because he believes the people that are giving reports who have historically lied. It's like Iran just said, we won this war against Israel. You can't, it's calling black white and white black. So you're going to listen to a Hamas reports and trust those reports? Are you serious? Can we take anyone seriously who does that? That's all this journalist is trying to tell Piers Morgan.
Humanitarian aid site that they support, that they help to set up, and that they want to work. They wouldn't. It would make no sense whatsoever. The people that are doing the shooting are Hamas. I spoke to many Gazan civilians, at least 50 in that.
Why don't the journalists get in then? Let the journalists in, and that can be verified.
They have told me. Why don't I let the journalists? It's got nothing to do with me.
Why doesn't Israel let the journalists in then?
This is shameful. This is shameful.
You'll have to ask Israel that.
We all know why they're not letting them in, Colonel Kemp. It's because they don't want the world to see what's happening.
Actually, the reason why Israel is not letting journalists in is because journalists like Piers Morgan don't report what's going on. The enormous bias in the media and the blatant lies of, just take BBC by way of example. right? The blatant lies and the way they will report that Israel bombed a hospital when it was Hamas's own missile that did that, right? And they'll stand by that even after there is clear evidence, is the reason why Israel doesn't let media in, for that reason, because the media is against Israel, period. They're not there to report facts, and they will take pictures, and they will use them against what actually that picture actually is depicting.
Let me bring in Shabbos, who's been waiting patiently. Shabbos.
The first reason, you've asked me a question, let me answer it. The first reason is because there's a very big danger if journalists went in on their own of getting kidnapped. You say...
Right. That's the risk that they should be prepared to take themselves.
And Israel has killed journalists.
You say that, but then Western journalists kidnapped inside Gaza become
how convenient. So that's why you have a 20-month media ban. Come on.
And the second reason, I don't know this for sure, I'm surmising, but the second reason, if I was in that position, I would be very hesitant to let journalists in, because I've seen how many journalists distort what they see from the West, from Britain, from the United States.
Of course.
Exactly. They completely distort what they see.
Convenient. How convenient.
And
don't let the journalists in. Only let the IDF tell the story. How very convenient. Let me bring in Shabbos. We've been waiting very patiently. We haven't got as long as we would normally have because we ran over with the minister. But Shabbos, I mean, your response to this?
I would start by saying this. Piers, you know how many Jews are living in Gaza? It's 0. You know how many Jews are living in Ramallah? It's 0. You know how many Jews are living in Nablus? It's 0. You know how many Jews are living in Jenin? It's 0. After Egypt and half a dozen other Arab Muslim countries attacked Israel in 1967, Israel was able to conquer an area called the Sinai Peninsula that is 2 times as large as Israel. And in 1979, they gave it back to Egypt unilaterally and unconditionally. In 2005, Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip. They expelled every last living and dead Jew from Gaza, all in the name of peace. The argument that Israel is experiencing or is trying to have an expansionist greater state of Israel is not corroborated by the facts or reality. And all I can say is thank God that there was no Piers Morgan Uncensored during World War II. Because what you would do during the bombing of Dresden, during the Battle of Berlin, is you would have German commentators talking about the civilian death toll and how terrible it is that the Allies...
Why was the Geneva Convention set up?
The Geneva Convention was set up specifically in order to deride the world of having Nazism and fascism in the future.
Actually, it was designed specifically to avoid some of the things that we saw in World War II. That was why it was set up.
Correct. And the Geneva Convention made it clear that, unfortunately, war in the 20th and 21st century is a necessary evil. It is terrible to have civilians being killed. It is terrible when you have a civilian death toll. But unfortunately, that is a consequence of every war ever fought in modern warfare. I mean, do you know how many German civilians were killed during World War II? It was 2 to 3 million. You know how many Austro-Hungarians were killed during World War I? It was anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million. But if we judge the
We're not in a world war. We're in a war between the most powerful military in the Middle East and a 2 million strong, with half of those being under 18, population of the Gaza Strip, which has been under occupation now for decades. That's what we're talking about. It's not a world war. We're not talking about a world war. We're talking about the most sophisticated military in the Middle East, relentlessly bombarding for 20 months a small area of land, the Gaza Strip, with 1 million people under 18. That's what we're talking about. Now, I agree Hamas had to be got rid of, but it hasn't happened. And at some point, there has to be an acknowledgement that this mission has failed. And all that's happened is Gaza has been flattened. More and more innocent people are being killed. None of the mission goals are being achieved. And now we've got members of the government openly saying, actually, what we want to do is kick all the Palestinians out. Openly saying it. So this mission has changed from self-defense to actually ethnic cleansing. That's my problem with it.
These are democratic politicians who are not controlling the war. Have you heard the Prime Minister? Have you heard members of the War Cabinet? Have you heard them talking about ethnic cleansing the Gazan population? People like Smotrich and Benvir.
He's the finance minister. He's the equivalent of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, for goodness sake.
He's not involved in the decision.
He's not involved. Come on, Colonel Kemp. Take your blinkers off, man. And you don't think Smotrich is involved in anything that's happening? What a ludicrous statement. I'm sorry.
He is not
I have great
involved
respect
in
for you and your military career, but what a ridiculous statement. Seriously.
And the other point that you made is that the Israel is not achieving its objective. It is achieving its objectives. It's taken a very long time. It's been terrible. It's taken a long time. It's a very complex war. It's very difficult. They've destroyed huge elements of Hamas. I said before, maybe around 25 to 30,000 of them, which is not far off the number they started with. And also, they are having hostage release. You said they've been released only through diplomatic means. How did those diplomatic means come about? Through military pressure.
Okay.
That's how it happens.
Here's,
and they
can
need
I
to
finish
continue.
off with
Yeah,
one
final
quote,
word, Wajah.
Final quote. What we're doing in Gaza now is a war of devastation, indiscriminate, limitless, cruel, and criminal killing of civilians. We're not doing this due to loss of control in any specific sector, not due to some disproportionate outbursts by some soldiers in one unit. Rather, it's the result of government policy, knowingly, evilly, maliciously, irresponsibly dictated. Yes, Israel is committing war crimes. And that's a quote from former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert.
Yeah.
And I agree.
It is true. And I interviewed him and he reiterated that to me.
He's wrong.
All right, I've got to leave it. I'm sorry we didn't have more time for the debate. We ran late with the minister who was running late herself, but I appreciate you for your patience and for the debate that we were able to have. Thank you very much.
The unfortunate thing about these conversations is that Piers, and this happens in all these interviews, it's not only Piers Morgan, but it is Piers Morgan as well. He just cuts in and he doesn't let people finish the point. And the other gentleman was making a fantastic point about the fact that if Israel really was trying to create a genocide, the facts surely don't show that. You can't find a single Jew anywhere in the Middle East that's allowed to live there. They'll be dead in 2 minutes flat because none of the Arab countries will tolerate a living Jew, never mind a dead one. And Israel gave back Egypt, which was Sinai to Egypt, which was a big mistake, which is a separate conversation. And they gave back Gaza, which was an even bigger mistake. But they did that because they are seeking peace. They have 2 million Arabs living in their country peacefully with all the rights of citizens, because Israel is not interested in a genocide or in killing all Arabs. They're in a situation now where the only way they can kill the terrorists is by going into civilian populations, and therefore many civilians, far too many, are being killed. Israel doesn't want a single one of them killed, but they have no choice, and their goal is to make sure that Hamas will never rise up again, and they are achieving exactly that goal, and nothing will stop them. And that's what the world is furious about, screaming about civilian deaths, when instead of insisting that Hamas put down their arms, give back the hostages, and get out of there, which Israel will be just fine with. No, they're yelling at Israel. They're on the wrong side of history again, and it all comes from one place: pure hate for the Jewish people.